to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book The Other Side of the Gun, no other than Miss Susan Snow.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Book 10, Abstract Essay. Supposed to be. Welcome to Abstract Essay, Miss Susan Snow. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure, absolutely. I am a trauma resiliency coach. I'm also a speaker and an author. Um, Married to the same man and have been with him for 40 years. And I have three beautiful adult children.
Yes, beautiful indeed. So, let's talk about the writing process of your book. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the book came because for a couple of reasons, actually. I have done a lot of work on my mental health because I have PTSD. I have been healing from that PTSD for a trauma of losing my father. And he was a Los Angeles police detective, and he was ambushed and killed when I was 17 while he was picking up my 6 year old brother from school. And my mom and I were called to the school and witnessed his body in the aftermath. So, because of that, um, I've had a very long healing journey. And part of that journey was because it was such a big story when it happened in 1985, Halloween in 1985. Um, there were people that had their story, my story in their heads, and a lot of the times it wasn't who I was as a person. So I decided that I wanted people to know my journey and see the resiliency of the healing that happened. So um, I started this process of writing the book. It took me 4.5 years to write it. And the reason it did is because I had to dive and relive a lot of things throughout my life. I wanted to be 100% authentic and 100% vulnerable in doing so. So, of course, it was 100% terrifying. uh, Putting your whole life out there for the whole world to see. However, I felt like not only would this help the law enforcement community because there was so much pain and anger around my dad's death that there were also people out there that are struggling or maybe didn't know they had trauma in their life um, and didn't understand why they felt the way they felt. And I thought that by writing this book that maybe they could connect with things that I was saying and start their journey or just know that they're not alone. They're not alone in this journey, and there is hope. You can heal from whatever traumatic experience you've gone through.
Indeed, there is hope, people. Hope is always in the corner. And how did you approach structuring the narrative? Did you write chronologically or did you start the most impactful moments first?
Well, a funny thing is, I had no idea how to write a book. So, thank God the editor I used, not only did she edit my book, but she also coached me through it. And I really didn't, I wanted to do it chronologically. However, she felt like going with the very first thing that happened, um, the actual trauma, would be better because it would set the stage. And so that's what I did. And we also formulated the book to be in two parts. So the first part is all the trauma, and the second part is how I got through it. The other very important thing that I did a lot of research on was making sure that my book was short, sweet, and to the point. Because us humans have, we our attention span isn't fantastic. We're busy people, and so I just wanted to make sure that I made a point and that it was a strong point throughout the book, that it kept people's attention and allowed for them to think about their own lives and their own things that their own experiences in life as well.
Definitely. And Miss Susan, what did your writing routine look like? How did you create a safe emotional space for yourself to work such a difficult material?
Oh yeah. Well, I time blocked. A lot of the time I did my writing in the morning. Um, and because it was very difficult, because it was very emotional, there were days where I just had nothing left. I wrote in the morning, and it took me down a journey, and I had to kind of give myself grace that day. And I was not, I was also and still am in real estate. And so I wasn't able to deal with my clients or talk to my clients. And on those days, I just gave myself grace and just did things that made me feel better and come back to a better state of mind. Um, so I took the tools that I've learned in my mental health journey and I used those to kind of redirect myself and um, get into a better state of mind so that the next day I could write again. Generally, I wrote 4 days out of the week, and sometimes it was sporadic because I would get busy, um, or fear would set in. And I'd have to do some talking to myself to kind of come out of that, and some reassurance that I was continuing to do the right thing. Um, and I felt like my dad was kicking me in the rear end to get it done. so, so that was kind of my routine. I just kind of, it was a morning routine, and I time blocked it, meaning I set aside time specifically to write, and I gave myself the time to do it, but I didn't tell myself like I'm going to do this many pages in this time. I would just write and just let it go in that time, and
Yes.
then end it.
Let it go for sure. Let it go, let it go. And Miss Susan,
Mhm.
were there moments where you had to stop writing for your own well being? How did you know when to pause and when to push forward?
Yeah. Well, yes. Yes, there was. I think mostly it came in because I also had repressed memories come up that I had to deal with as well. I did a lot of research to get actual factual things having to do with my dad's case, and that was hard to relive and and read and everything. So I did have to stop, and I'd give myself a couple of days, or um but I think the main thing I did was I had to sit back and think about what was the importance and what was my true purpose behind writing this book. I think that when you're when you're writing something as profound and personal in a memoir, especially a true crime memoir, it's really important to really be clear about why you're writing this book. And so I had clarity around that. Um, but I had to like ask myself, what is the true purpose behind this book? And the true purpose was I felt that the world, people, faceless people out there who have gone through something in their life, needed to feel the hope that I did and see the hope for themselves and know that they're not alone, because those were lessons I gleaned from my own experiences. And I felt like it was more important than my fear. So it allowed me to bulldoze that fear and keep going.
Emotional landscape and healing. How did the process of writing and reframing your experience change your relationship with the trauma itself?
Well, I will say my book did more for me than years of therapy did, um, in total, because I was able to sit in it and I was able to go through the emotions, um, on my own pacing. You know, when you're in therapy, you have a certain amount of time with your therapist. This way, I was able to really dive in and feel the emotions around it. And I did have the tools from all of the mental health work that I had done, such as just going out and grounding myself in nature, going for a walk, getting fresh air, um, breathing techniques, like anything that was going to calm my nervous system, because there were times where my nervous system would, you know, get out of whack, from my writing, because I was experiencing those things again, and it was causing my anxiety to rise. So I would have to use those tools that I had, um, to regulate my nervous system again. And that was very important, because if you aren't regulated, your writing is not going to happen. You're going to have, your emotions take over, and you're not going to be able to get what's really important on those pages.
Definitely. Missing those pages for sure. Did you
Mhm.
discover anything new about yourself or your resilience through the act of writing?
Oh, absolutely. When I wrote the book, I thought, how much did I grow from this experience? And I'll tell you an example of what it proved it to me that I did. I After the book came out, I had a speaking engagement and a book signing in Southern California, and that was the place where this happened, where this occurred. So I had these two things, and before we left, my husband and I left Southern California. I went to the cemetery to see my dad and talk to him. um, and while I was there, something in me told me that I needed to go to the school where he was killed. It LAPD had put placards out on the street signs of all the places where officers were killed in the line of duty, and my dad's placard is in front of the school, on the main street. And anytime I went by that school before this book, I would feel sick to my stomach. I would get very anxious and very emotional, and I really just couldn't go anywhere near it. And so when this thought of going by the school popped up into my head, I thought, okay, I'll do it. Whoever's telling me to do this. And so we went to the school. I found the placard. And as I was standing on the street looking at the placard, I felt peace. There wasn't a part of me that was anxious anymore. There was not a part of me that was sad anymore. There was not that part of me that wanted to cry and scream and do all the things that I did before. And then that little voice in my head said, how far can you push this? So I was driving that day, the rental car, and I told my husband, before we go to the airport, I want one more place to go. And he was clueless. He had no idea. And he's been with me since the very beginning. So we drove up the street and we started to turn right on the street that connects the front side and the back side of the school. My dad was killed on the back side of the school. And as we turned onto that street, my husband looked at me and said, "What are we doing?" And I said, "Just give me a minute." I drove up the street. I turned the car around and I sat there. And again, not one part of me was anxious. Not one part of me wanted to run out of there or scream or cry or anything. In fact, I was able to describe to my husband that night what I saw. And um, we looked at each other and we said, "Oh my God, we've come full circle." And I feel like if I hadn't wrote this book, that healing would never have happened. And so that to me proved that I grew through this process enough to go back to that space and go back to that place and not have the emotions wrapped around it. This time, my emotion was pride. I was proud of myself for being able to do that. And my husband was proud of me for being able to do that as well. So
We are
that was,
proud of you, Miss Susan. On Book 101 Review, we're proud of you. Your bravery is something else. How did you balance telling the raw truth of your experience with need to protect your own peace and privacy of others?
when you write a book like this, you and you have to be authentic and you have to be vulnerable. I had to put everything on there as far as my experience. This was all my experience. But I will say, in doing that, I did have to tell the truth of other people. And there was fear around that. But part of that was my experience. So, for instance, my mother and I did not have a very healthy relationship prior to my dad's death, and definitely not after it. And, you know, um, I grew up with a narcissistic parent who um, just did not show up for me in the times that I needed her to. And I don't blame her. Like, there's no blame, there's you know, no judgment in that because it was her journey and it was her choices, right? But the experience, the consequences to some of the choices that she made impacted my life. And so I knew by telling her story, it was either going to destroy what was left of our relationship or it was going to open a conversation, which it ended up destroying my relationship with my mother, her choice. And that was okay. Um, More so because also in that traumatic experience, we found out that we too were targets at one time. So when I did this book, another fear was that there were two men that were still incarcerated, and when you've already been a target, you worry about retaliation, and so there was that fear as well. But again, going back to what I said before, my purpose of getting this message out was way more important than my feelings of fear around these things. And so that's why I continue to push forward, and actually speaking my truth creates peace within myself.
Definitely peace. Peace indeed. And Miss Susan, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, I would like to write another book. It's going to be a little bit just because this came out a couple years ago, and I'm still working through um, that book. My editor told me at when this book came out a little couple of weeks afterwards. She said, "Now you're living your second book." And she's absolutely right, because the experiences that have come from writing the book and people reading the book, and the I have made a difference in people's life, and all of those experiences will be a part of my next book, but not sure when that's going to happen. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to get my message out to as many people as possible on stage, and also really trying to help people one on one in my coaching. So,
Good luck to your goals, Miss Susan, and looking forward for more success. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be an author like you?
well, again, be very have clarity around what you truly want your book to look like. And I think that that is the most important thing, because when you really get that clarity, and you have that purpose of behind the scenes, what it is that you the message that you want to put out is very important. And for me personally, I wanted to take my readers on a journey. And so that was another thing that I had to do, is picture taking my readers by the hand and taking them through this journey. So if you have a journey that's similar to mine, yes, it's scary. Yes, you're going to have fear around it. But the best thing you can do is to write your story and get it out there and be very clear about the purpose behind it.
Definitely. Something else. And thank you for that advice, Miss Susan. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Oh my gosh. Well, anything from Benny Brown. Benny Brown is like, she is my favorite. Um, I am listening to Let Them right now, and and that one I think is really important too, because, that was part of my journey, as well as is letting my mom be my mom and finding that peace for myself. So Mel Robbins, Let Them, is powerful.
Powerful indeed, and highly recommended. And thank you for that books, Miss Susan. And hoping our listeners or viewers will read them. And let's talk about the completion of the book.
Oh,
Completion and impact. What did feels like to write the final sentence? What was the primary emotion you felt? Relief, pride, fear, or something else?
oh, all of the above.
All of the above,
All
for
of the
sure.
above. I think the other that me getting it out was one thing, but coming back from the editor was another thing. And um having I think when I had to rewrite a lot of things and move things around and things, and I finally felt like I had a product that I could be proud of, that was the difference. And seeing my book printed was surreal. Like, it was absolutely surreal, because I had been telling people for years that I was going to write a book, and I actually did it. I moved forward with it, and I actually did it, and I was so proud of myself, um that it was actually out, and it was out there, and um it was a surreal feeling, absolutely surreal. Um, I also narrated my own book in an audio form. And when I got done narrating the last page and the last sentence and the last word, I broke down, and I think I was more emotional with that than I was the actual writing part. And I think because it was that was a task. That was that was not easy. I mean, I can tell my story this way, right, on a podcast, on a stage, but it's different when you're hearing it from your own voice and your your own emotions and everything. And so I experienced what my readers will experience listening to it. And that to me was even more surreal.
Indeed, surreal. So, what the single most important message you hope a reader who has experienced trauma takes away from your book?
I think the most important thing that you can glean from my book is that, again, there is hope. You can heal from it. You don't, you can, by choosing to heal, by choosing to make that first step to find the professional that is going to guide you in your journey of healing, um, is scary. But I will tell you, not having that pain hold over you is powerful. And by taking that first step, you are taking your power back from that person or that thing that hurt you. So do it, because I promise you it'll be worth it.
Do it, people. Do it and stop procrastinating. If you have the passion to do something, please share to the world. So, Miss Susan, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my food one, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in its third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Miss Susan, now that your book is out in the world, what's the story ended for you, and does it continue a new way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm a different person. So, um, yeah, I mean, I continue to, just because I wrote the book doesn't mean that the healing stops. So I'm ever evolving, and I see things a lot clearer than I used to. And I'm very grateful for that. And I think because I've had this experience of writing this first book, the second book won't be quite as difficult to do. And, you know, I learned a lot. I learned a lot out of that journey of writing a book. So I'm going to continue to keep those lessons, um, and continue this journey of getting my message out.
Indeed, Miss Susan is now. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support the other side of the gun?
Sure. So the other side of the gun is on Amazon. It is a paperback form, it is in Kindle form, and it's in audio form. Um, I do have a website. It's susansnowspeaks.com, and you can, it's my one-stop shop. You can get information on my speaking, my coaching, and my book.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Susan Snow because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Susan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.